Welcome to our weekly Tanya class. We are fortunate enough that we are studying Tanya every week in our Chabad house in Fort Myers, Florida, and which is aired on YouTube every single week. We finished the first 4 sections of Tanya. We're the last chapter in Igeret Hakodesh, and then there's a few more chapters called Kuntros Achrein, a few more essays. But this is the official last chapter in the 4th section of Tanya. The 4th section is called Igeret Hakodesh, and it's Igeret Hakodesh, Perek Lamed Beis. It's the 32nd chapter of Igeret Hakodesh. Now, as we mention every single week, the Tanya is the Bible of mysticism. So therefore, every single chapter is important, and every single chapter in Tanya creates its own lesson and its own message. The message of this week, which is a very, very powerful and important message, the Alter Rebbe shows us the Kabbalistic journey that takes effect when a person gives charity. And Alter Rebbe is going to teach us and show us that when a person gives charity in this world, you're creating vessels for the infinite light at the resurrection of the dead. So we all know the Messiah is going to come. Everyone's going to be resurrected, and God himself, the infinite light, Or Ein Sof, is going to reveal itself. It needs a place to go into. By giving charity, you are creating vessels for that powerful revelation at the resurrection of the dead. So the Alter begins the chapter Perek Lamed Beis, the 32nd chapter in Igeret HaKodesh, which is the last chapter. So we're doing the Siyum, the completion of this section right here in Haditch, where the Alter Rebbe is buried. It's a tremendous chus. And he starts off by quoting a verse from the Torah, from the Bible, at the end of the Torah, Parshat Vezot Habracha, where Moshe Rabeinu blesses the tribe of Levite. We know the tribe of Levite is the one that worked and served in the temple, and the blessing he gives them, he says as follows: Borei Hashem Chilem, ופעל ידם ירצה. So Moshe Rabeinu is blessing the tribe of Levites for their service in the temple. The Alter Rebbe says that today we don't have a temple, so we don't have the Levites serving in the temple, but we all know that when there's a destruction, there's always a benefit. And the Alter Rebbe quotes from Avos to Rab Nosson that says that today we don't have a temple, but any time a person today in exile gives charity, you accomplish the same thing that was accomplished in the times of the temple by bringing a sacrifice. So the blessing that Moshe Rabbeinu gave to the Levites for serving in the temple, the Alter was giving the same blessing to all those that give charity. Because when you're giving charity, it's like you're doing that type of service. So therefore, that blessing, he's channeling over to anyone that gives charity. The Alter Rebbe in this chapter, because we're dealing with charity, so we know when you give charity, there's the giver that gives charity, but there's always somebody, we wouldn't say always, many, many times, someone that's inspiring you to give charity. So the Alter Rebbe gives a blessing, those that inspire people to give charity, to continue to inspire people to give charity, because when you inspire someone to give charity, sometimes they don't like it. You're pushing the limit too much, you're pushing them to give too much, but the Alter Rebbe blesses them that they should continue inspiring others to give charity, and he's also blessing those that give charity. So it's a double blessing. And the blessing he gives them is that the charity that they're giving and the inspiration they're giving others to give charity should go לפני Hashem, in front of Hashem, תמיד, and shall last forever. And the Alter Rebbe continues, as a true leader does, to inspire those that are inspiring others to continue to inspiring others more and more, and those that give, to give more than they gave till now. Why is that? So the Alter Rebbe quotes from Ethics of the Fathers that says, Eizeu Gibor, hakovsh Ytzro. In other words, you want to know what real strength is? Real strength is that when you do more than you plan on doing. You do more than you think you're doing. You want to be a Gibor, you want to be someone strong, so you think you can only do so much, and when you do more than you can do, then that's considered a real Gibor. So the Alter Rebbe is inspiring those to inspire others more, and those that give should give even more. And the Alter Rebbe actually says that those that inspire others to give charity, in a certain sense, their merit is greater than the one that gives, in a certain aspect, because they're inspiring others to give. The person who wouldn't have gave, and you inspire them to be a giver. So in a certain sense, you get a tremendous reward for that. But then now the Alter Rebbe goes into the spiritual effect that takes place when you give charity. The Alter Rebbe quotes from the prophet Yeshaya that says, Tzidkasoi, someone that gives charity, oimedes, will stand la'ad forever. And the Alter Rebbe focuses on the words, Tzidkasoi, when you give charity, oimedes. Now oimedes is actually the word for oimed is the shirish for the word is oimed to stand. Oimedes is the female concept of it, the feminine, oimedes. So the Alter Rebbe says, why is it called oimedes? If you're giving charity, that's masculine energy. I'm a giver. The Alter Rebbe explains two reasons. Right now he addresses one issue, one reason, because when you give charity because you're being inspired by others, so the reason why you're giving, it wasn't that you, it was your inspiration. You're being inspired by others, therefore it's considered oimed the feminine energy. Why? Because you received inspiration, you're the receiver of inspiration from someone else to give. So your tzedakah is in a level of oimed because you're being inspired by someone else. You're the receiver of someone else's inspiration. So oimed is referring to the inspiration part. La'ad, nevertheless, even though you're being inspired by another, but you still give charity. And that charity that you give will last la'ad forever. What does that mean forever? And the Alter explains like this. That when you give charity, there's two components in giving charity. There's the physical gift. You gave, whatever you gave. But then there's the way you give it. What does that mean? When you give, you can just give someone, whether it's time, whether it's money, whether it's food, whatever it may be you're giving them. But then it's the way that you give it. You give it in a way of chesed, kindness, ava, love. You're dedicated to the person. You make the person feel good. So when a person gives charity in a way of chesed and ava, that creates a tremendous, powerful energy that when the Messiah comes and the infinite light is going to come down to the world, in Hebrew it's called Soviv Kol Almin, it needs a vessel to go into. So the charity you're giving will be la'ad, so that when the Messiah comes and we have the resurrection of the dead, the infinite light of Hashem will have a place to go into. Now, why does the infinite light need a place to go into? And Alter Rebbe explains very simple. And he says like this, that take, for example, we all have, God gave us a godly soul and gave us a body. But you don't see souls walking around without a body. If there's a body, there's a soul inside. When the soul leaves, the body goes back into the ground. Why is that? Because the soul needs a place in this world, a physical place to be anchored. It needs the body. So even though the soul is the godly part, it's the powerful part, it needs a vessel. And the vessel is the body. That's one example the Alter Rebbe gives. The Alter Rebbe gives another example. And he quotes from the prophet Jeremiah that says, that the words are Hashem like fire. And he explains, what does the idea of a fire? You ever look at a fire? So a fire, you have oil or wax, and you have a wick, and then you have the fire. In order for the fire to burn, you want the fire, you want the light, you want the warmth. So something has to be willing to self-sacrifice itself so that the fire can burn. The wick, the oil, the wax. So in other words, in order to have fire, you need something that's willing to be sacrificed, which becomes the vessel for the fire. So the Alter Rebbe gives two examples. A, from the soul that needs the body houses the soul. And B, where the fire needs the wick, the candle, the oil for it to house itself in. So the Alter Rebbe says the same idea. That when a person gives charity, and he does it in a way of chesed, of kindness, and he gives it, and the Alter Rebbe uses another expression, divas halev, he's giving it from his heart. So by doing that, you're creating vessels for the infinite light to come into. Because the infinite light needs some place to go into. And the Alter Rebbe actually quotes from the Zohar, which is a prayer that we say every single Friday night. And the Zohar says, V'kama gufin tekinus line. What does that mean? God made many, many bodies. What's a body? A vessel. And the Zohar continues and says, V'skariu b'sikuna da chesed reyamina. That what is the body for? What is the body? What is the body? The body is chesed, kindness, which is the right hand. What does that mean? Because there's chesed and there's a gvura. But what is the right hand? What is the real strength? And what is all the midos? What's the shirish of all the midot? Come from chesed. So when a person acts in a way of chesed and ava and kindness in a real way, you're creating, as it's always says, guf, and you're creating bodies. which is basically creating vessels, so when the Messiah comes and we have the resurrection of the dead, this infinite light will have all these vessels that we create by giving charity today. The author also quotes from, on the high holidays and the prayers, we say, Levushay tzedakah, that tzedakah is the garment. What does that mean? Just like when you give charity, it's like a person wears a garment, so when you give charity, you're creating a garment for the infinite light that has a place to go into. And the Alter Rebbe actually quotes from the Talmud. The Talmud says like this: Ein hatzedakah mishtalemes el lefi chesed sheba. That means you can give tzedakah, and it's great, tremendous mitzvah. But if you want it to pay off, what means pay off? You want it to create those payments, those vessels at the resurrection of the dead, you have to do it in a way of chesed. Because if you just do it, it's a mitzvah. It's great. But in order to create vessels for the infinite light, it has to be done in a way of chesed. So this tzedakah, this giving charity, which is great, a big mitzvah, but there's doing tzedakah with chesed, with kindness, with love, with feeling, and that creates the real vessel. Or as the Alter Rebbe quotes from the prophet where it says, Ziru lachem l'tzedakah, kitzru lefi chesed. What does that mean? You plant charity. So anytime you're doing charity, you're planting, you're creating a mitzvah, you're creating a good deed. But if a kitzru, you want to be able to reap tremendous benefits, when finally it reaps off, you're going to have tremendous benefits. That comes according to chesed. So chesed is key to create the ultimate success of the giving of tzedakah. Now the question is, Alter Rebbe asks a simple question. So why is tzedakah, when you give charity, is only called zri, you're planting? And why is chesed called when you're able to cut it off? And the Alter Rebbe is very simple. When a person takes a seed and you plant in the ground, so what happens? You put the seed in the ground, and under the ground it starts creating the produce that it's eventually going to give forth. But while it's in the ground producing it, you don't see anything. When do you see it? When it finally comes out and gets revealed. So the Alter Rebbe says the same idea. When you give charity in this world, maybe you feel good for a minute and you feel like you're doing the right thing. You don't really see the results. When will you see the results from all the charity you're giving in this world? At the resurrection of the dead. And the infinite light's going to come down to the world and it needs a place to go into. You will see the results because the infinite light will have a house to go into, will have a vessel to go into by the charity we give now in this world. Now, the author explains that we know that there's 4 different worlds, starting the highest world, Atzilut, Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. Each one of these worlds we can have a whole class on. But generally speaking, in every single world, there's Ur and there's Keli. There's the light and the vessel. But in the lower worlds, for example, you have the light and the vessel. You look at the light, you see a light. You look at the vessel, you'll see a vessel. You don't see that they're really the same thing, even though in theory, everything is the same thing. You see clearly this is light and this is a vessel. The vessel is more physical, the light is more spiritual. As you go up to the higher worlds, and there already the mask of concealment goes away. So for example, in Atzilut also there's light in vessels. But when you see the light and you see the vessel, they look like they're one. As the Zohar says, Ihu, referring to the light in Atzilut, Vegarmehu, the vessel in Atzilut, Chad, it's one. Why? Because already you don't have the concealment, so the vessel doesn't look like a real concealment of a vessel, even though it's a vessel, and it looks like one. And the Alter Rebbe says, when the Messiah comes, you have the resurrection of the dead, what's going to be revealed? The infinite light of Hashem. The light is going to be so great. So even though there's going to be a vessel, which was created by the charity, but the vessel is not going to be a vessel, it's going to be noticeable as a strong vessel. Because it's going to be in the highest level of one. Because if in Atzilut we say it's one, how much more so when Mashiach comes and we're going to have the resurrection of the dead, where it's all going to be one. Now what's interesting is, the Alter Rebbe says, an interesting idea, and he says, for example, we know it's tzedakah, charity. How do you call tzedakah charity? It's called tzedakah. Tzedek is the shirish, but it's called tzedakah always. Why is it called tzedakah with a hey at the end? So one answer the Alter Rebbe explained before, because the reason why you're giving tzedakah is because you're inspired by somebody else, or it has the feminine level. But the Alter Rebbe now explains on a Kabbalistic level, based on what we just learned, that the reason why it's called tzedakah with the hey, because what's the idea of the feminine level of giving tzedakah? Because when you get tzedakah today, you don't see the results. When do you see the results? At the resurrection of the dead. And what results are they going to be? It's not going to be a light, it's going to be the vessel that you're creating. So the whole idea of giving tzedakah today A, if you're being inspired by others, so you're on a feminine level. But B, even if the Alter is explaining even deeper that what are you creating? You're creating vessels, and that's why tzedakah is called tzedakah with a hey, the feminine level, because the feminine is kabel, to receive. So we're creating receptacles for the infinite light when the Mashiach comes. So up until now, the Alter spoke about tzedakah, where you're being inspired by somebody else. Now the Alter is going to talk about a different level in tzedakah, where you're doing it on your own inspiration. And the Alter actually quotes from Psalms that says like this. The verse says, Tzedek lefonav yahalich. Now over there, if you look in Psalms, it says Tzedek, Tzaddik Dalaf Kuf. It doesn't say hey at the end. So is it tzedakah or is it Tzedek? And the Alter says in Psalms he's talking about Tzedek, the masculine form of tzedakah. What's the masculine form of tzedakah? That you on your own meditated on the greatness of God, how much you love God, how much you want to cleave to God, how much your closeness with God is important to you. Like, for example, we say in Shema, what do we say? Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. The oneness of God, we want to be connected to Hashem, and we say, V'ahavta, we love Hashem, with Chol Levavcha, with our whole heart, with Chol Nafshecha. On that level, when we're so closely bonded with God, then you're willing to do anything for Hashem. Specifically in reference to charity, as we know, it says in Shema, B'chol Mo'edcha. What does it mean, B'chol Mo'edcha? You're willing to give anything of yours. Any physical and spiritual help you can give to somebody, you're willing to do anything. But why are you willing to do it? Because you were inspired on your own. So the Alter Rebbe says what happens is when you're inspired on your own, that's called not tzedakah with a hey when you're inspired by somebody else. That's called tzedek. It's your own energy. It's your own meditation. It's your own closeness to Hashem, your own seeing the light that you want to give charity, and you give charity. So then, when a person gives charity in the level of tzedek, then the Alter Rebbe says, what does the verse say? Lefonav yahalich. You actually reach the premise of Hashem, and what happens then is when the Messiah comes and the souls will be resurrected, you're going to be creating vessels for the infinite light of Hashem. However, there's a big major difference. When you're inspired on your own to give charity and you're creating the vessels, so what vessels do you create? You create vessels that are able to handle the infinite Oirein Sof, Hasoiviv Kalam, which is higher than all the worlds, that come down in an internal way, full revelation in your vessels. However, if you're giving charity because someone else inspired to you, you're going to create vessels, and the infinite light will reside within your vessels, but only the external part of the infinite light, only the external part of the Hasoiviv. So as you see how important it is, if someone inspires to give, sure you should give. It's still a vessel. And you're creating a vessel for the infinite light, but it's only giving the external light. What's really important is to develop your own relationship with Hashem and realize how Hashem is so great and Hashem gives you all the blessings, and you want to give charity on your own. And when you want to give charity on your own, you'll create vessels that when the Messiah comes, what kind of light's going to be in your vessel? Literally the essence, the panim, the essence of the infinite light. As the Alter Rebbe says, if you look at the words, what does it say in Psalms? Tzedek lefonov yahalich, which means that you're bringing down the panim. The panim is the face, the essence of Hashem, down into the physical world in a real way. But you're bringing down what kind of light? Even a light which is higher from Atzilut. And the Alter Rebbe finishes off with a blessing to all those that gave charity, that give charity, that will give charity, that Hashem should be kind to them. And obviously there's nothing greater than when Hashem is kind to us. And Hashem also, the Alter Rebbe also adds a blessing for those that want to give charity, but they can't. But they want to give. Hashem should also be kind to them. And the Alter blesses everyone with tremendous goodness and great things. So as you see from this chapter, that how important it is to work on giving charity. And as Alter Rebbe says, that when a person gives charity, there's something which is called in Kabbalah and Chassidut, Kemayim hapanim al panim. It means when you stand in front of a mirror and you look in the mirror, what do you see? You see the face you put in. You're smiling, you're going to see a smile. God forbid, if not, you're going to see the opposite. Or, for example, you know, there's another terminology in Kabbalah that says, which means the way you behave in this world, that's what the reward you're going to get from Hashem. So when you give charity and you really, really are connected to Hashem, you love Hashem, you want to be there for Hashem, you want to really, really help people, and you help people with a smile and love, you will draw down the greatest, most powerful energies, which maybe now we don't see it. But when the Messiah is going to come and all the souls are going to be resurrected, that infinite light will have vessels to go into. And this physical world will benefit from the infinite light of Hashem. So here you see in this chapter, the way the Alter Rebbe shows us the importance of giving charity, but more importantly, the tangible results that take effect by the charity that we give. And again, we don't see the results now. We'll see it at the resurrection of the dead. But then you're going to see the infinite light really in this world. So I just want to say it's really, really a tremendous gift to be able to finish the last chapter in Igeret, Hakodesh, chapter 32, right here in Haditch, where the Alter is buried. As we saw before in the beginning of the video, we walked in, we said some Tillim, where the Alter is buried. This is the beautiful shul right here in Haditch, and it's really, really a tremendous blessing and schus to be able to be here to do the Siyum, the completion of the last chapter in Igeret HaKodesh. And let's hope and pray that we continue to learn Chassidus, teach Chassidus, and live a life based on how the Alter wanted us to live, a life that we see and feel Hashem in everything that we do. Thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you at future classes. Shavua Tov.